You know that feeling when your heart starts racing out of nowhere? When your chest tightens and your thoughts spiral into worst-case scenarios? When you're lying in bed at 3 in the morning, replaying every awkward conversation from the past decade? Yeah, that feeling. We've all been there, and chances are someone has told you to fight it, to push through, to be strong, to control your thoughts, to win the battle against anxiety. But here's what nobody tells you. The fight itself is the problem. You're not supposed to fight anxiety. You're supposed to see through it. And once you understand this, everything changes. So stick with me, because in the next few minutes I'm going to show you why every technique you've been taught about managing anxiety might actually be making it worse, and what you should do instead. Let's start with something most people don't realize. Anxiety isn't your enemy. I know that sounds ridiculous when you're in the middle of a panic attack, when your body feels like it's betraying you, when you can't catch your breath and you're convinced something terrible is about to happen. But the truth is, anxiety is actually trying to protect you. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The problem isn't the anxiety itself. The problem is that you're fighting against a system that's designed to be unfightable. Think about it this way. Your anxiety is like a smoke alarm. When there's a real fire, you want that alarm to go off, right? It's supposed to be loud and jarring and impossible to ignore. That's the whole point. But imagine if your smoke alarm started going off every time you made toast. You'd probably try to shut it off, disconnect it, maybe even smash it with a hammer. But here's the thing, the alarm isn't broken. It's just oversensitive. It's detecting something that looks like danger, but isn't actually dangerous. And the more you fight with the alarm, the more attention you give it, the more it becomes the center of your entire world. This is exactly what happens with anxiety. Your brain has an incredibly sophisticated threat detection system that evolved over millions of years to keep you alive. When our ancestors heard a rustling in the bushes, their brains didn't wait around to philosophically contemplate whether it might be a predator. They activated the fight-or-flight response immediately, heart rate up, breathing faster, muscles tensed, ready to run or fight. This response kept them alive. But here's the problem with modern life. We're not running from lions anymore. We're sitting in office meetings, scrolling through social media, worrying about what someone thought about our email, or whether we're good enough, successful enough, attractive enough. Our threat detection system hasn't updated its software. It still thinks that social rejection is equivalent to being cast out of the tribe, which in prehistoric times meant death. It still thinks that uncertainty is dangerous, because not knowing where the next meal was coming from was genuinely life-threatening. So your brain sounds the alarm, and you feel anxiety. Now, what do most people do when they feel anxious? They try to fight it. They tell themselves to calm down. They try to breathe it away. They distract themselves. They avoid situations that make them anxious. They argue with their thoughts. They try to logic their way out of it. And sometimes on a good day this might work temporarily. But most of the time, it doesn't. In fact, it often makes things worse. Why? Because fighting anxiety is like trying to win an argument with someone who isn't interested in logic. It's like trying to put out a fire by throwing paper on it. Every time you engage with anxiety, as if it's a real threat that needs to be defeated, you're actually confirming to your brain that there is something to be afraid of. You're teaching your nervous system that anxiety is dangerous. And what does your brain do when it detects danger? It produces more anxiety. You've created a loop, a trap, and the harder you fight, the tighter the trap becomes. Let me give you an example. Have you ever told yourself, "Don't think about a pink elephant"? What happens? You immediately think about a pink elephant. Your mind doesn't process negatives the way you think it does. When you say, "I need to stop being anxious," your brain hears anxious and focuses on anxiety. When you say, "I shouldn't worry about this," your brain hears worry about this and starts worrying. Every reassurance you give yourself, every attempt to convince yourself that everything will be okay, every strategy to control or eliminate the anxiety, all of it requires you to focus on the very thing you're trying to get rid of. It's like having a song stuck in your head and trying desperately not to think about it. The effort itself keeps the song playing. This is the fundamental problem with fighting anxiety. The fight is the fuel. So if fighting doesn't work, what does? This is where everything shifts. Instead of fighting anxiety, you learn to see through it. What does that mean? It means understanding that anxiety is not reality. It's a feeling. It's information from your nervous system, but it's not always accurate information. Just because you feel afraid doesn't mean there's actually something to fear. Just because your mind presents you with a scary thought doesn't mean that thought is true or important or predictive of the future. Anxiety is like a movie playing in your mind. And right now, you're so immersed in that movie that you've forgotten you're in a theater. You've forgotten that you're watching a screen. You think the movie is reality. Seeing through anxiety means remembering that you're the audience, not the movie. It means recognizing that thoughts are just thoughts, feelings are just feelings, and sensations are just sensations. They're all temporary experiences moving through your awareness. They're not facts, they're not commands, they're not predictions. Let me be clear about what this doesn't mean. Seeing through anxiety doesn't mean pretending you're not anxious. It doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or putting on a brave face or toxic positivity. It's not about telling yourself, everything happens for a reason, or just think positive thoughts. That's just another form of fighting. Seeing through anxiety means accepting that yes, right now, in this moment, there is anxiety present. There are uncomfortable sensations in your body. There are worried thoughts in your mind. And that's okay. Not because anxiety is fun or pleasant, but because it's just what's happening right now. It's weather passing through. You don't fight the rain. You don't argue with a thunderstorm. You acknowledge that it's raining. You maybe grab an umbrella and you go about your day. The rain doesn't have to stop for you to function. In the same way, anxiety doesn't have to disappear for you to live your life. This is the concept that changes everything. You can be anxious and still do what matters to you. You can have worried thoughts and still show up for your life. You can feel uncomfortable sensations in your body and still take action toward your goals. Anxiety doesn't have to be resolved before you can move forward. This is radical for most people because we've been taught the opposite. We've been taught that we need to feel confident before we do something brave, that we need to eliminate anxiety before we can function, that mental health means feeling calm and peaceful all the time. But that's not how it works. Confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence comes from taking action despite the fear. You don't wait until you feel ready. You do the thing while feeling unready, and eventually, your nervous system learns that the thing you were afraid of isn't actually dangerous. Think about the first time you drove a car. Terrifying, right? Your hands were probably sweaty, your heart was racing, you were hyper-focused on every little thing. That's anxiety. But you didn't wait until the anxiety went away before you drove again. You drove again, and eventually your nervous system got the message. Driving isn't actually life-threatening. The anxiety decreased not because you fought it, but because you showed your brain through repeated experience that there was nothing to fear. This is called exposure, and it's one of the most powerful tools for anxiety. But here's the key. It only works when you're not fighting the anxiety. If you expose yourself to a feared situation while desperately trying to control or eliminate your anxiety, you're actually reinforcing the problem. You're telling your brain, this situation is so dangerous that I need to use every defense mechanism I have just to survive it. But if you expose yourself to a feared situation while accepting the anxiety, while seeing through it, you're telling your brain, this situation might be uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. I can feel anxious and be okay. Now, let's talk about thoughts, because anxious thoughts are particularly tricky. When you're anxious, your mind becomes a factory for worst-case scenarios. What if I fail? What if they hate me? What if something terrible happens? What if I'm not good enough? These thoughts feel so real, so compelling, so important. And this is where most people get stuck. They either believe the thoughts completely, or they try to fight the thoughts, or they try to replace them with positive thoughts. But all of these approaches miss the point. The point isn't whether your anxious thoughts are true or false. The point is that they're just thoughts. Your mind is doing what minds do, generating thoughts. That's its job. The problem is that we've been trained to take every thought seriously, especially the loud, scary ones. We think that if our mind is telling us something, it must mean something important. But your mind is just a thought-producing machine. It doesn't have quality control. It produces thousands of thoughts per day, most of which are repetitive, random, or completely useless. When you're anxious, your mind is like a paranoid security guard who sees threats everywhere. It's trying to protect you, but it's overreacting, and you don't have to believe everything your paranoid security guard tells you. Here's a practical way to see through anxious thoughts. Notice them, name them, and let them be. When an anxious thought appears, instead of engaging with it, instead of arguing with it or trying to prove it wrong, just notice it. Oh, there's a thought about failure. There's a thought about being judged. There's a thought about worst-case scenarios. You can even thank your mind for trying to protect you. Thanks, mind, for that input. I see you're worried. And then you let the thought be there while you focus on what you're actually doing. The thought doesn't have to go away. It can just be background noise. Most people find this incredibly difficult at first because we're so used to taking our thoughts seriously. We think that having a thought means we need to do something about it. We need to analyze it, solve it, fix it, or make it go away. But you don't. You can just let it be there. Thoughts don't require action. They're just mental events. They appear, they hang around for a while, and they disappear. But only if you let them. If you grab onto them, if you fight with them, if you try to push them away, they stick around longer. It's like trying to force yourself to fall asleep. The effort keeps you awake. The same principle applies to physical sensations. Anxiety isn't just mental, it's deeply physical. Rapid heartbeat, tight chest, shallow breathing, sweaty palms, trembling, dizziness, nausea, the list goes on. And these sensations can be genuinely uncomfortable, sometimes even scary. Many people's anxiety gets worse because they become afraid of the anxiety sensations themselves. They feel their heart racing and think they're having a heart attack. They feel dizzy and think they're going to pass out. They interpret normal anxiety sensations as evidence that something is seriously wrong, which creates more anxiety, which creates more sensations, which creates more fear. Another loop, another trap. But here's the truth. Anxiety sensations, while uncomfortable, are not dangerous. They're just your body's emergency response system activating. Adrenaline is being released. Your heart rate is increasing to pump blood to your muscles. Your breathing is quickening to get more oxygen. This is all your body preparing you to deal with a threat. The fact that there's no actual threat doesn't change the physical response. Your body is just doing its job. So instead of fighting the sensations, instead of trying to make your heart slow down or your breathing calm down, you can practice seeing through them too. You can notice them with curiosity instead of fear. Oh, there's tightness in my chest. There's a racing heartbeat. There's a feeling of shakiness. You can even rate them on a scale, not to control them, but just to observe them. Chest tightness is about a 7 out of 10 right now. And then you watch what happens. Most of the time, when you stop fighting the sensations, when you stop adding fear on top of fear, the sensations start to shift on their own. They might get a little worse for a moment, and then they begin to decrease. Not because you forced them to, but because anxiety, by its very nature, is temporary. It's a wave. It builds, it peaks, and it passes. But only if you let it. If you fight it, if you resist it, if you try to stop it, you extend it. This brings us to one of the most important insights about anxiety. The only way out is through. You can't go around it. You can't skip it. You can't think your way out of it. You have to feel it. You have to be willing to experience the discomfort. And this is scary for most people because we've been conditioned to avoid discomfort at all costs. We live in a world that promises us comfort, convenience, and instant relief. Feel sad? Here's entertainment. Feel bored? Here's your phone. Feel anxious? Here's a pill, a technique, a distraction. We've lost our tolerance for discomfort. We've forgotten that discomfort is a normal, natural part of life. And so when anxiety shows up, we panic. We think something has gone terribly wrong. We think we need to fix it immediately. But what if you didn't? What if you could be uncomfortable and be okay? What if you could feel anxiety without it meaning anything about you, without it ruining your day, without it stopping you from doing what matters? This is the practice, being willing to feel whatever you're feeling, not because you like it, but because it's already here. Fighting it won't make it go away. Accepting it might not make it go away either, but it will change your relationship with it, and that changes everything. When you're no longer afraid of your own anxiety, when you're no longer trying to control or eliminate it, it loses its power over you. You realize that anxiety is uncomfortable, but it's not unbearable. It's not dangerous. It's not permanent. It's just a feeling. And you can have any feeling and still be okay. You can have any feeling and still take action. You can have any feeling and still show up for your life. This is freedom, not the freedom from anxiety, but the freedom to live your life regardless of whether anxiety is present or not. Now, I want to address something important. If you're dealing with severe anxiety, if you're having panic attacks regularly, if your anxiety is significantly impacting your ability to function, this isn't about just toughing it out or white-knuckling your way through. There's no shame in seeking professional help. Therapy, particularly approaches like acceptance and commitment therapy, or exposure and response prevention, can be incredibly effective for anxiety. Medication can also be helpful for some people. The point isn't that you should struggle alone. The point is that the goal isn't to eliminate anxiety. The goal is to change your relationship with it. The goal is to stop fighting and start seeing through. And this is something that therapy can help with, but it's also something you can practice on your own, starting right now. Here's what this looks like in practice. The next time you feel anxious, pause. Don't immediately try to fix it or make it go away. Just pause and notice. What am I feeling right now? What thoughts are present? What sensations are in my body? Get curious instead of judgmental. You don't have to like what you find, you just have to be willing to look at it. And then, here's the key part. Ask yourself what you would do right now if the anxiety wasn't a problem. If you could feel anxious and still move forward, what would you do and then do that? Maybe you'd send that text you've been avoiding. Maybe you'd go to that social event. Maybe you'd work on that project. Maybe you'd just sit with your coffee and read a book. Whatever it is, do it while the anxiety is present. Don't wait for the anxiety to leave. Do it anyway. This is how you show your brain that anxiety doesn't have to be in control. This is how you reclaim your life. Over time, something interesting happens. You start to notice that anxiety comes and goes like weather. Some days it's there, some days it's not. Some moments it's intense, some moments it's barely noticeable. But it doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean you're broken or weak or damaged. It just means you have a nervous system that sometimes gets activated. That's it. You also start to notice that you're not your anxiety. You're the awareness that notices anxiety. You're the space in which anxiety appears. And this space is vast and calm and unshakable even when anxiety is present. This is seeing through anxiety. This is recognizing that anxiety is an experience you're having, but it's not who you are. It's weather, not climate. It's a wave, not the ocean. And you are the ocean. Deep, vast, unchanging underneath all the surface turbulence. This perspective shift is profound. Instead of being a person who has anxiety and needs to fight it, you become a person who sometimes experiences anxiety and can allow it to be there. Instead of your life being about managing anxiety, your life becomes about living according to your values, while anxiety sometimes tags along. Anxiety becomes irrelevant, not because it goes away, but because it's no longer the focus. It's no longer the thing that determines what you do or don't do. It's just something that happens sometimes, like rain or traffic or a headache. Annoying, sure, but not significant, not meaningful, not something that needs to be fought or feared or fixed. The irony is that when you stop fighting anxiety, when you stop making it the enemy, it often decreases on its own. Not always and not permanently, but often enough that you notice. This isn't the goal. Remember, the goal is to live your life regardless of whether anxiety is present. But it's a nice side effect. Your nervous system starts to learn that anxiety isn't dangerous, that the situations you are avoiding aren't dangerous, that you can handle discomfort without falling apart. And as your nervous system learns this, it calms down. It stops sounding the alarm so frequently. The anxiety might not disappear completely, it might never disappear completely, but it becomes less intense, less frequent, less all-consuming. And more importantly, it becomes less significant. It's just there sometimes, and that's okay. So here's what I want you to take away from this. You don't have to fight your anxiety anymore. You can stop exhausting yourself with all the strategies and techniques and battles. You can stop trying to think your way out of it, or breathe your way out of it, or meditate your way out of it. Not because those things are bad, they can be helpful, but because they're not the solution. The solution is simpler and harder at the same time. See through the anxiety. Recognize it for what it is, a feeling, a thought, a sensation, a temporary experience, and let it be there while you do what matters to you. You are not broken. Your anxiety does not need to be fixed. You just need to stop fighting yourself and start living your life. And when you do that, everything changes, not because the anxiety goes away, but because it stops mattering so much, because you realize that you can feel anxious and still be brave, still be kind, still be present, still be fully alive. And that's the real freedom. That's what's on the other side of the fight. Not a life without anxiety, but a life where anxiety is just one small part of a much bigger, richer, more meaningful experience. So stop fighting, start seeing through, and watch your life open up in ways you never thought possible.